All right, everybody, still here. It's Friday, December 20th, 2013, Daily Market Pulse. So, markets did in fact go higher. I think they were even at almost at triple digits on the Dow Jones at one point during the day. I know I glanced at one point, they were some 90, 80 or 90 points up. I don't remember if they ever got to triple digits, but nonetheless, they storm higher. Higher volume, but that's really because quadruple witching today, so usually it's just an outrageous amount of volume just because of all the transactions simply. And so market uptrend is resuming. We're making new highs. Distribution day count the same. Nothing's changed there. So we're going to probably look at some things a little more closely today. All right, so Dow Jones, you remember the flag came out of it aggressively. Wednesday, Thursday was sideways. Today, higher. Made a new high into 16,300 and then gave most of it back, at least half. I'm pretty sure anyway. The low, let's see, 16,178, the high 16,287, so that was 110 points from low to high. And so 287, it finishes at 227, so 60 points off. So yeah, so a little more than half given back up. And I think the VIX started to race. Well, race, it's all relative. It did raise higher, but it was another oddity there as well. I'll show you that later. But this is an interesting fact here. It gets into the Bollinger Band and retreats as much as it. That's usually not a great sign when it gives that much back. Anytime you see a green candle and it gives that much back, it's at least a red candle the next day. Usually, they're sideways. At best, it's sideways. Example back here, it did not. It went higher, and then, but that's not most of it. That's not even half. That's just barely. That's barely a quarter. This is more than half. So that's not a great sign. I'm assuming they may come back and test the breakout area. Maybe that's what they might do, or sideways. So let's just see what happens on Monday. Trend is still up nonetheless with a breakout. There's the S&P. Didn't quite give up like what we just saw on the Dow. Let me do this here. This is something weird going on there. Okay, there we go. So Harami, and then we broke free of that today with a new high. It shed a little bit late in the day, but outside that, looks this is stronger than the Dow, but breaking out finally. The Dow had already broken out. Well, maybe not. Broke out today more aggressively. The S&P breaking out today. So that polarity area there at 1810, 1815, 1820 is now going to be the support area, at least anticipated. There's the NASDAQ crossing the gold line, the highs, and the Harami as well. Rising window and a new high. That's a very strong candle. NASDAQ in full gear for sure. So that's strong. Bollinger Bands are now starting to open a little bit. There's some room. That's always a good sign. TSX. So the window and the polarity area here will be the anticipated support on the way down. If there's a drop, there's the shooting star. So it came up. We thought there was a lot of room up to the highs at 13,515, and it hit that today, hit 13,504, and then retreats a bunch. Bollinger Band still declining, big, huge retracement today. How hard and how fast this could certainly go back and retest 13.5 again with the strength that was behind it so far. The 8 moving average rising, but not yet crossed over the 50 nor the 20, but they're all clustered together, and that will form a support area across that blue shaded area. So even if it drops, my anticipation would be that this comes back up and retests 13.5 again. US dollar, Canadian dollar is worth looking at. So Scoop came off support, 20-day moving average, raced into resistance at 107, pulled back a little bit yesterday. Today, even harder, made a new high, and then a big shooting star today. Immediate support of all the gold, all the green candles right there. So there's, you got all the series of lows in a perfect trend right now. And I'm going to go solid. I'll even make a dash, I think, at this point, just to make it a little bit different. So there's the support that coincides with the 20-day moving average. So you're looking for the likelihood of a support area there, and a breakout ultimately to close above 107. Maybe we'll look at the euro real quick as well as we kind of zip through some of these. Euro came into 138.50 and retreated, bearish engulfing evening star formation with a decline last couple of days, holding steady with a high wave today, holding the 50, holding the 20. So the real buys are getting smaller in size, meaning that they're probably winding down the selling at least temporarily. See if there's a bounce or not. It is oversold. We'll see what they can do with it. Let's go to treasuries, because treasuries were pretty strong today. Treasuries, big green candle, as you can see. And I still thought overall, while the pattern was neutral, everything still seemed to say, or at least somewhat suggest, they could go higher. But it still needed to get over 130. It's not quite there yet. But that's a solid move, closing above the 20 for the first time since way back here, that it's closed above the 20 right here. That's the last day. October 30th was the last day it had a close above the 20. So now looking to go through 130 into 131 and possibly 132 on the upside. Well, the yen might be, let's take a peek, as the yen was collapsing. It gapped down yesterday. It stayed pretty stable. It made a new low today, then reversed. So it's trying to come back, possibly after a flush, to at least retest the support area. The former support, now resistance area. Possible crack and snap in the making, but it needs to get back up over the 8 moving average. Let's look at gold. Gold, we talked about if it was going to come into 1210, into maybe as low as 1800 where the support area was, and see what it was going to do. It bounced reasonably well today, not quite yet forming a bullish piercing. Not quite. It needs to get into the halfway portion of the red candle. It didn't quite get there. The high was probably there at one point during the day, but it retreated just enough to say nope. So it's not real strong bullish candle yet. It needs to get up and over 1220 to get even more bullish than it is now. Let's look at crude. Crude has a nice day. We talked yesterday up over the 8 moving average, holding across 97.25, bumping into 99 and attempting to close above 99. It barely did, as well as the 200-day moving average. Everything looks really good still. If it can ever clear this 99, then 101 to 103 were the next targets. Looks like it's well on its way to do that now. Looks good. I like it. Let's go with natural gas. Inventories yesterday created a huge move to the upside of the 450 and then just kind of testing that 450 level. That's all. The gold lines are essentially the levels of potential resistance, target area, so they're back in there now. Small caps might be worth looking at very quickly. Small caps, we talked yesterday about it's stuck at 113. Could it get back inside the channel? And it did today. So things are looking reasonable at the moment. Overbought, yes, but looking more reasonable on the long side. And if you look at the VIX, this is the interesting thing about this. The VIX yesterday at one point was forming a hammer, but that's when the real body was closing lower. The fact that it closed higher then changed it and took it away, took the hammer portion away, because now the real body was larger or the same size as the lower shadow, rather than the shadow being twice the size. So at one point a hammer was forming, but a hammer did form today. Real body is twice the size of at least twice the size of the lower shadow. New higher low closed beneath the 50-day moving average. Trying to fight back here, trying to do something. This is the intriguing part. It's looking like it's trying to bounce back in toward 15 to 1550. 1450, I should say, to 15 instead. So interesting there. All right, so with that, volume strong, of course, because of quadruple witching. Markets are still higher. Now you've got a polarity change. You've got that area at least anticipated as support. Everything looks strong with a little bit of jitteriness here in the VIX, but nothing overly threatening as of yet. But still, I don't know. It's the high distribution day count. It could be a head fake. We could see a failure, but I just have to be careful. Always watch for those levels. Now that it's crossed, everything looks good to the long side, unless you start breaking down below the current support area. All right. Have a great weekend.